On our VIP list this time, a vet, a visionary, a vampire slayer, a virgin, and a virgin queen. Regularly described as a timeless beauty, Cate Blanchett's ethereal image belies the talent, intelligence, and bravery of the actor underneath.
I think she's phenomenal. I think she's a really rare creature in that she dares to do things, dares to take on very, very challenging projects, and never seems to me to take the easy way out of things. You know, that she will choose something that's difficult and probably not perhaps what she would imagine that she would do next, you know. It's full of integrity.
Born in Melbourne in 1969, Cate got her start in acting after graduating from drama school and acting in stage productions around Sydney. She hit the big time after transforming herself into Elizabeth I for a film that chronicled the early years of the Virgin Queen's reign. Portraying the young monarch's passage from naivety to steely stoicism earned her an Oscar nomination. 2 years later, she was playing the lead in Sam Raimi's mystery thriller The Gift, playing a woman with ESP who's asked to help find a missing woman. She got to play dress-ups in a string of period pieces, such as An Ideal Husband and Charlotte Gray, before donning a pair of pointy ears to embody Elven Queen Galadriel in Peter Jackson's epic Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Even the smallest person can change the course of the future.
She also took on the Wild West in Ron Howard's thriller The Missing, which involved spending months in isolated parts of the rural Southwest and learning how to ride a horse.
Yes, I'm quite urban. I don't like to be too far away from an espresso machine. But I promised Ron I could do it. And I think when you make a promise to Ron Howard, you have to deliver.
In 2004, she was finally delivered an Oscar for her portrayal of Katharine Hepburn in Martin Scorsese's The Aviator.
I mean, my job was to scrutinise her performances in a way that one doesn't as an audience member, and it was incredibly daunting, you know, because I'm representing her in colour when people receive her in black and white and in the same medium that she's so iconically known. So there's a lot of technical preparation to do, and then at the end of the day you just have to work with the other actor and be directed by Scorsese, which was an absolute pleasure.
The next year she returned to her hometown to play an ex-junkie attempting to get her life back on track in Little Fish. It was a role she could identify with.
I think it's, I mean, in every single person I know in some way has felt they've let themselves down. They felt that they've missed an opportunity. And I know a lot of people, and I felt, you know, my early part of my 20s, I felt like things were slipping away from me. And, you know, when you come out of drama school and you don't start working, I mean, not to the extent that Tracy has, obviously, but I think everyone can relate to that.
In 2006, she was forced to turn down the lead role in Ms. Potter because of other commitments.
Hello.
And in Alejandro González Iñárritu's Babel, she starred alongside Brad Pitt as a whining American tourist who ends up stranded in a desert backwater, desperately in need of medical attention after being accidentally shot.
Nothing they proposed was impossible for them.
They do things differently.
After that, she threw herself into the confronting role of a bohemian art teacher, locked into an unhealthy relationship with an obsessed older woman who knows about her affair with an underage schoolboy. Notes on a Scandal earned both Cate and Judi Dench Oscar nominations.
She's the one I've waited for.
But despite all the accolades and leading roles, Cate was still humbled to be honoured at a Premiere Magazine event.
Incredibly nerve-wracking. Incredibly nerve-wracking. I mean, I think the best way to meet one's heroes, or in this case heroines, is to actually work alongside them. And I've had the great fortune of working with a lot of the women in one way or another in the room, so that makes me slightly less nervous. But it's quite overwhelming.
Along with her husband, playwright and screenwriter Andrew Upton, Cate recently signed a 3-year contract as artistic director of the Sydney Theatre Company, which will allow her to take on other projects, such as reprising her role as Elizabeth I. Doe-eyed Jake Gyllenhaal was lucky enough to come from a film industry background. Having a director for a father, a screenwriter for a mother, and Jamie Lee Curtis for a godmother did him no harm. And after a few minor roles, it was the 2001 cult creeper Donnie Darko that shot him into the limelight. With the help of a 6-foot rabbit called Frank, Donnie discovers the mysterious laws that govern his life and that will lead to the destruction of the universe.
Donnie is experiencing what is commonly called a daylight hallucination.
I have to obey him. He saved my life.
Have you ever seen a portal?
Has he ever told you about his friend Frank, the giant bunny rabbit?
The what?
His on-screen image as a troubled teen saw him through several more films in the early noughties, like Bubble Boy and Moonlight Mile, with Dustin Hoffman and Susan Sarandon.
House that says "beg off," or maybe a T-shirt. I don't know. What do you think?
This is how I had it.
Following Dustin Hoffman's sage advice, he then took some time out from Hollywood to take on a stage role in London in a revival of This Is Our Youth. It won him an Evening Standard Theatre Award for Outstanding Newcomer. In 2003, he appeared to be coming for Tobey Maguire's life. After hooking up with Tobey's ex-girlfriend Kirsten Dunst, Jake was earmarked to take over as the Webbed Wonder, when a pre-existing back injury looked set to rule Tobey out of the action in Spider-Man 2. Not surprisingly, Spidey made a full recovery, and Jake went on to make the apocalyptic blockbuster The Day After Tomorrow, which appealed to his strong social conscience. After wrapping filming, he flew to the Arctic to promote awareness of climate change. But then he has always been politically active, strongly supporting Democratic candidate John Kerry and speaking up at a recent concert in support of the American Civil Liberties Union.
But I think right now, more than anything, the idea of dissent is being threatened, and that's really scary.
For Jake, keeping an open mind is of paramount importance.
My code is that everything progresses, I think, and you should, be open to change. So there is no code. That's my code.
Welcome to the suck.
Living by his own credo, he smashed his sensitive image by playing new recruit Anthony Swaffer in Sam Mendes' Gulf War drama Jarhead. As well as putting his hand up to endure the punishing conditions of the desert, Jake was prepared to get his kit off for the role.
You feel very confident in your mind and body, when you're in an environment like that. You have to. Survival of the fittest. So, taking off your clothes, you're constantly you're living with these people all the time, and that's the mentality I was in. It was it was a joke. Being naked wasn't that big of a deal,
Initially hesitant about taking on the role of a gay cowboy in Ang Lee's Brokeback Mountain opposite Heath Ledger, Jake ended up being one of the film's greatest ambassadors.
I think more than anything, I feel honored to take on the part, and to have been in this story. When you read a short story by Annie Proulx and you see that, it's filled with the complexities, and that it kind of, the universal story of it all affects so many different people, and you really are just kind of helping it out to the audience. It doesn't really matter. To me, what's important is that it's a beautiful story.
Trying to get
his heartbreaking portrayal of Jack Twist, a rodeo rider forced to lead a double life, earned him a swag of awards and an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor.
I might be back.
educated.
Graysmith.
Yeah, what?
He shrugged off rumours about his own sexuality to be listed as one of People magazine's hottest bachelors of 2006, and went on to star in the thriller Zodiac.
It's a movie about a count who hunts people for sport. People. The most dangerous game. I play Robert Graysmith, who's a cartoonist, who's works at the San Francisco Chronicle, a newspaper, who gets these ciphers and these letters from the serial killer, the Zodiac. And he becomes sort of obsessed with the ciphers and slowly decides to take on the case himself. And gets in a little bit of trouble.
He found working with Fight Club director David Fincher a unique experience.
There are a lot of things in it that would move and change and continue to, even as we shot. So details would change, lines would change, because we'd get new information. So we were constantly learning and constantly, you know, sort of solving the case ourselves in an odd way as we went along.
Forget that she was discovered at the age of 4 in a Manhattan restaurant and that she starred in an early 90s soap opera called All My Children. All that matters to most Sarah Michelle Gellar fans is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
You are the Slayer.
I think I speak for everyone here when I say, huh?
Chosen.
Her portrayal of a teenage misfit defending the world from mystical foes with the aid of her friends and mentor captured the imagination of millions of viewers around the world for an amazing 144 episodes over 8 years. With its huge cult following, Sarah Michelle will have to go some to shake off the ghost of Buffy. Not that she hasn't had a fair share of other roles. In 1997, she had roles in 2 horror films, Scream 2 and I Know What You Did Last Summer, which also starred her future husband, Freddie Prinze Jr.
If I win, then that...
In 1999's Cruel Intentions, she steamed up the screen with Ryan Philippe.
Ever since our parents got married.
She and Freddie married in 2002, and in the same year they starred together again in the film version of cartoon classic Scooby-Doo.
Now who's the damsel in distress? Me? Straight up.
Scooby-Doo is just incredible to be part of this iconic show, this show that has outlasted any other of its kind, was intimidating and daunting and so much fun. I can't stress enough that it's been an incredibly fun experience, from the wardrobe to the sets to the locations and to just working with this ensemble cast that was so giving and so friendly and so loving and so trusting that it was a perfect experience.
Excuse me? Not only was it lots of fun, it earned more than $268 million, spawning a sequel entitled Monsters Unleashed 2 years later, and sparking questions about being part of a Hollywood couple.
No, I don't think of myself as a couple in Hollywood. I think of myself as an actor in Hollywood and a couple at home.
Then she returned to more familiar territory in the Hollywood remake of Japanese screamer The Grudge.
The whole time I was in that house, I felt something was wrong.
Something different than everyone's seen. And I think that good thrillers have gotten kind of formulaic in Hollywood, and it gets to a point where you know it's coming, you know, you yell at the screen, don't go to that door, and this is different than anything you've ever seen. It's shockingly different. It's smart, it's intelligent, and I think people are in for a good ride.
Indeed, The Grudge proved to be just as terrifying in English. And on reprising her role in the sequel Grudge 2, Sarah Michelle gave credit where it was due.
The Japanese have such an amazingly beautiful way of telling stories, whether they're love stories, whether they're scary films, whether they're thrillers, and I just can't believe it took so long for us to steal from them.
Perhaps she should have stuck to Japanese remakes for her next couple of outings. The Return failed to live up to its name at the box office, recouping only half of its budget on its 2006 release.
Symptoms you're describing. Scientists are saying the future is going to be far more futuristic than they originally predicted.
Next, she signed up for Richard Kelly's long-awaited follow-up to Donnie Darko, Southland Tales.
The basic concept is this. I play an LAPD cop who isn't who he seems. He's a paranoid schizophrenic who has a supernatural gift. He sees things.
Described as a comedy about the end of the world, the film was panned when it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, and Sarah Michelle was left to defend it.
I don't don't really think it's anti-American. I think what Richard was trying to say was, this is how we are abusing ourselves and our country and our planet. And if we continue this way, this is a possibility of what could happen. So he's basically giving hope, almost in a sense, the fact that take a look at this and maybe re-examine the way you do things. So what are we looking
Still, while she may have hit a small bump in the road in terms of her acting roles, she's powering ahead with her voice work. In the animated fairy tale Happy Never After, she plays Princess Ella. And in the star-studded animated return of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, she was delighted to give voice to a character she grew up with.
I must have been about 8 or 9. I'm really dating myself now. And I was flipping through the TV guide and I saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it's a line that you take for granted now, but when you hear it for the first time, it might be the strangest combined words ever in the history of the English language. And I remember losing my mind, laughing, going, this is great! Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, I am watching this.
One person who could teach Paris Hilton about shameless self-publicity is Madonna Louise Veronica Ciccone Ricci. Joni Mitchell once declared she's knocked the importance of talent out of the arena. She's become the biggest star in the world by hiring the right people. No wonder a generation of younger singers hold her in such high regard.
She's a very cool lady. I've always looked up to her, and she's a big icon and an inspiration for me in a really big way.
Britney learned a lot from her icon in terms of hitting the headlines when she snogged her on stage at the MTV Awards, sparking a furore that hogged the limelight for weeks. Madonna was candidly up front when quizzed by Today's Show host Meredith Vieira about her controversial Confessions tour.
It was, I mean, my entire show is a publicity stunt, let's face it. I'm putting on a show to sell my record, to make my points, and I knew it would be provocative. I mean, I had a crucifix that was covered in mirror ball. I mean, the disco ball.
Born the third of 6 children to Tony Ciccone in Bay City, Michigan, Madonna's ballet teacher introduced her to gay discotheques. And in 1978, she moved to New York City with $35 in her pocket to pursue a dance career. She signed a deal in 1982 with Sire Records, and her debut album spawned 3 hit singles. Her follow-up album, Like a Virgin, shot to #1 and seemed to pave the way for an acting career, which got a kickstart with her role in the comedy Desperately Seeking Susan. Big screen-wise, it was all downhill from there, with disastrous reviews for her performances in Shanghai Surprise, Who's That Girl?, Dick Tracy and Body of Evidence. She bottomed out in 2002 in a film directed by her own husband, Guy Ritchie. Swept Away earned her a Razzie Award and banged the last nail in her acting coffin. But that left her more time to think of new ways of conjuring up controversy with her music. The video clip to the title single of her American Life album in 2003, containing scenes of war, explosions and blood, was pulled on the eve of its European release.
It's ironic that we're fighting for democracy in Iraq because we ultimately aren't celebrating democracy here, because anybody who has anything to say against the war or against, the president or whatever is punished, and that's not democracy.
3 years later, she was embroiled in another hoo-ha when her Confessions tour sparked off major protests in Moscow, drawing outright condemnation from the Vatican and religious leaders. Needless to say, the Russian leg of her tour sold out, with her Confessions tour grossing $260 million, setting the record for the top-grossing tour ever by a female artist. No sooner has she got the crucifix safely into storage than she was raising blood pressures again over the rush job adoption of Malawi orphan David Banda. Although she might not cut it as a star of Hollywood fiction, the drama she's created in her own life has provided more than enough fuel for a good few documentaries.
That really hurts me to hear that.
Why does it hurt you? Why does it hurt anyone to hear that someone doesn't believe in God? What's the problem?
I've changed. My views in life have changed. Hopefully I've grown up, evolved. I have a family, I have children. A lot of people talk about this sort of,
kind of be in a room. Part of her evolution is to turn to producing films rather than acting in them. At the premiere of her animated feature Arthur and the Invisibles, she talked about slowing down.
I must do something. Cover me! Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be working all the time. I want to have time for my family. So that always comes into the equation when I'm making a decision about work.
Over the course of his roller coaster career, Eddie Murphy has made a habit out of smashing preconceptions.
It's not so much that I made a transition in as much as it's just trying to show versatility. That yes, I could be the dad, and I could come in the room and shoot the cop dude, the bad dude, and I could be the donkey, and I could play your mama too.
Eddie started off in stand-up comedy and became a household name thanks to Saturday Night Live by the age of 19. In 1982, he scored a massive comedy smash with Nick Nolte in the movie 48 Hours.
Heard of him now, man?
2 years later, his immortality was assured in the film that was originally intended to star Sylvester Stallone. Beverly Hills Cop grossed over $300 million. Although not as successful as the original, Beverly Hills Cop 2 still pulled in $150 million. But the third installment signaled a huge downturn in Eddie's career, which was not helped by Harlem Nights, a tanking vanity project which Eddie not only starred in and directed, but also produced and co-wrote.
Plans to go elsewhere.
But the biggest catastrophe of his career has to be The Adventures of Pluto Nash, the biggest theatrical money loser of all time. It grossed just $7 million on a $110 million budget and won Eddie a Razzie Award in 2002. However, he did score some big hits in the intervening years. He started upping the ante in the makeup department in 1996's Nutty Professor, in which he played multiple roles.
How was your day?
He followed up with several other family-friendly roles, such as Dr. Dolittle and The Haunted Mansion. Being the father of 4 kids in real life probably provided great inspiration for his spell as a childminder in Daddy Daycare.
How much harder can 10 be? 10 times?
Do you know what type of responsibility that is?
Yes, and I'll be just as careful with them as I am with Ben. Oh, hey, man, don't be just rubbing your hands. It's showtime.
But in 2002, he partnered up with Robert De Niro in the action comedy Showtime, which earned them both a Razzie nomination for Worst Screen Couple. But since then, it's been all uphill for Eddie, whose extraordinary voice talents bring to life the sassy equine sidekick of the beloved animated ogre in the Shrek franchise.
Happily ever after potion.
Give me that bottle.
Donkey, you're a
stallion, baby!
Cast as soul singer James Thunder Early in the big screen version of Broadway musical Dreamgirls, he won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor, as well as a Screen Actors Guild Award and that all-important Oscar nomination, which Eddie had to admit gave him a thrill.
I'm just over the moon about it. I've been making movies, like I said, a quarter of a century, and it's just a great feeling. It's a great, great feeling. These are good times.
He may have lost out to Alan Arkin, but he still had plenty of work to do, keeping other actors out of work by playing 3 of the main characters in Norbit and presenting the makeup department with their biggest challenge yet.
See what you're trying to do.
Of course, it was no picnic.
If you're a claustrophobic person, you go crazy because you feel this tightness, and all day long they're maintaining it. So you got to be all day somebody's touching your face, and then at the end of the day it's like taking off a mask that was glued to your face, and it's hurting and it's pulling your eyes. So much work goes into it.
Still, it was all worth it when even his co-stars didn't recognize him.
For me, it was Mr. Wong, because that was day one, you know, and I'm actually sitting down talking to the cat and thinking he's a cool Chinese cat. And he playing it like, you know, yeah, it's my first date. Never do film before. I'm like, man, just be yourself. You know, you can handle it. And the director's like, we're ready for you, Mr. Murphy. Dude gets up, it's him. Yeah. Then he turned around and got Cat next.
He got me.